Hi, everybody. I'm Robin Treistman. I'm from the Knesset, the Israeli Parliament. Quick word about myself is I'm the deputy director of the website. I've been in a position. I've been working on the Knesset website since it started back in 1997. So I've kind of been around this kind of stuff for a long time. This panel, we're meant to discuss. The panel is called Mobile Applications in the Legislative. Everybody who is here has some kind of, shall we call it, some kind of experience with working with some kind of app in their legislature. I'm assuming that most of us are, or all of us, all four of us, come from the technical side, or at least managing the technical side. But sometimes, even though we, in the end of the day, we are coming from the technical side, sometimes the more interesting aspects of our work often have to do with the stuff around the app, how people react to the app, how people use it, how people sell it, so to speak. So that's pretty much some of the stuff I would like to touch on. A little bit of a word, what goes on in the Knesset. So first of all, again, I've been in this legislative web world for a pretty long time. So starting from the late 90s up until really the late 90s and the early 2000s, pretty much at the beginning of the World Wide Web. Really the idea was to take all of our information and to put it up online. Now, what am I describing right now are challenges that we've had over the years where we really had to figure out, where suddenly we had to create new budgets and new technologies to keep up with what was going on in the web world. And so, for example, so again, at the beginning it was really, let's just get the information up there. And then all of a sudden there was a demand to have some kind of interactivity. And then there was demand to have a presence on social media. And then there was a demand to be accessible for people with disabilities. And then all of a sudden, and really who knew 15 years ago that there's a demand that we have all of the legislative information available on a small screen. Who figured that was going to happen? And from our perspective at the Knesset, it started very slowly. People did not have smartphones at the beginning, and really, our web development was really get all of the information out to the public on our website. And then when we saw that more and more people had smartphones, then we started to make these funny decisions in our staff, which was, well, people might want to see the agenda for the committees, but who wants to read a protocol while they're standing online at the supermarket? So, we would make these decisions that, oh, we'll have this available on our mobile friendly site, but we're not going to have this available on our mobile friendly site. And these are obviously decisions that also come up when creating an app. What do you think is going to be most important for your MPs? What's going to be most important for your public? Anyway, again, I call it kind of funny decisions because in the end, the bottom line is like this. The Knesset right now, we don't have an app. For a while, we had an app that got very outdated pretty quickly because technologies kept progressing. But in the end of the day, rather than an app, the resources at the Knesset are actually all going into making sure that every single new project and page that goes up onto the website is also mobile friendly, to make sure that everybody who has a small screen can also see it. Wherever they are. I know that there are parliaments and of course companies and organizations that have moved to the mobile first, thinking mobile first before even thinking about what their website is going to look like. We pretty much do the two at the same time. And so again, the bottom line is that from a budget perspective, the Knesset is not interested in spending extra money because they don't see how having an app is going to give us more than having a very mobile friendly site that has all of the information available that everybody might want. Now, again, each of you represent technical work of parliaments. Each of you have some kind of an app that you oversee, that you direct, that you may have developed. And we want to hear about all of that. When each of you, I will be going around and asking each of you a question. Please spend the first bit of time when answering the question, describe to us the app that you will be talking about, introduce us to it, let us know what it is about. And so we're looking forward to hearing from everybody. But this first round, I would like, please, each of you please introduce yourselves and what you do in your parliament. So we can start with Bruno.
Okay, my name is Bruno Campelo. I am coordinator of digital solutions for legislative process at Directorate of Innovation and IT at Brazilian House of Representatives. I have 11 years working with the digital solution for the lawmaking work mainly, and I'm involved with the digital transformation strategy of my parliament since the beginning. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. How do we pronounce your name? Mwaula? Did I say that right?
Yes, it's Mwaula.
Mwaula. Okay.
Yes, please.
Yes. Okay, I'm sorry. Mr. Mwaula Solopi from the National Assembly of Zambia. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much for this opportunity. My name's as stated as Mwaula Solopi. I'm currently the head of ICT at the Parliament of Zambia. And obviously I have about 16 years of experience within the technical field, 6 of those in the private sector, and the current 10 now within the Parliament of Zambia. So that's pretty much what I would have to say about myself for now. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Stephen Dwyer from the United States House of Representatives.
Hello, Robin. Good to see you again, and everyone. Glad to be here. Yes, I have worked for one member of the U.S. House of Representatives in leadership in a couple months. It'll be 20 years. His name is Steny Hoyer. He's currently the majority leader in the House of Representatives, and for that whole 20 years, he's been the number 2 in the Democratic Party, behind a name you all probably know more commonly. Nancy Pelosi has always been the number 1 in the 20 years. As she's currently Speaker of the House. And so I work directly for a member, not for the institution, but since I've been in a leadership office for so long, and I have a computer science background and a lot of interest in technology of the institution, as does my boss, who's always been very supportive. Yes, we have developed a popular app for the United States House of Representatives. It's called Dome Watch. I'm excited to talk about it. But also I'm able to help and support and encourage the institutional offices in the House of Representatives. I work with them closely on all things digital and tech and web. So that's my background.
Okay, thank you to each of you. Okay, so now let's get into the, as they say in my country, into the kishkas of everything, which is into into the nitty gritty. Okay, so we'll start with Bruno. Again, I'd like you to please tell us a little bit about InfoLeg that you manage, that you oversee. And then I would like to, again, this is kind of sort of an exercise in, I'm not even sure what the word is, in really thinking about our necessity, thinking about our relevance. Pretend that we, the 3 of us, the other 3 of us, okay, are a board of budget people in your parliament, and you have to convince us why you need InfoLeg, and having convinced us why you need InfoLeg in the first place, why, or if you need to make some kind of further improvements or further upgrades of your app, why? Tell us why. Sell us on the idea.
Okay, well, sell InfoLeg here in Brazilian House of Representatives today is an easy task. InfoLeg is a reality here for us since 2016, and after the beginning of pandemic, it became more relevant. It is practically impossible to think about our legislative process without InfoLeg today, because it allows the hybrid meetings. Yes, it allows it, and provides all the key features required by the process, as well as the mobility and availability required today. So these two factors are very considered here for us. I will describe some features of InfoLeg. So InfoLeg is included in our virtual plenary solution, like in this picture, as an essential part of a block formed by the other legislative systems that we've already had. So we have two independent blocks to this architecture, one related to video conference service, and the other one, where is InfoLeg, composed of our internal systems that we've already had before InfoLeg. And InfoLeg consumes data generated by these other systems throughout the legislative process. And also InfoLeg produces data to record the effective participation of the MP in the session, in the meeting. Speaking of many features, the most important one is voting process. So if there is a voting item open in a session that is in progress, in a meeting that is in progress, the MP will select the voting action and be presented with available options, like in this picture. You will be able to consult beforehand a brief text that summarizes what's being voted, and also the political leadership orientation for voting. So MP, through this feature, makes his choice and confirm his action. To do this, InfoLeg has a security process with two factors of authentication. He can change his vote while the voting process is open. So only during the process is open, MP can change his vote. And during this process, MP, as an MP votes, for example, it is shown in the application, in the app, that this MP has already voted without revealing the quality of the vote yet. After voting closes, so the results are displayed in the app, showing how each MP voted. It is also possible to do an election process to a specific position on the board, for example. In this case, the MP can select another one to a specific position, or a set of them that make up a defined group for the different positions that the election process is aboard. To confirm his choice, the MP uses the same security process defined to vote. And in this case, election process, it's possible to audit all steps of the process to guarantee the security of the vote during the process and after too. Speakers list, another feature, according to internal regulation of House of Representatives here in Brazil, the MP can ask to speak at certain moments in a plenary session. So he can select one of the available lists and subscribe, indicating his position for or against, and wait to be called by the session chair. And to do this subscription, MP also uses the same security process defined to vote. Committee meetings, the same functions of the plenary are present to the committee meetings. So MP can vote, can register for the meeting, can subscribe an available list to speak. The same features are present here. Biometric recognition, InfoLeg offers this recognition in addition to the authentication steps. So this feature is provided by the producers of the smartphone itself. So it can be digital, iris, or face. We store the encryption protected password through the producer's APIs on the MEP's device and use the APIs from producers of the smartphone or from the tablet to compare the reported biometric data with the stored data. So these options prevent the MEP from having to retype the password in each voting process, for example, or in each subscription that he has to do. Signature of bills. MP can sign a bill before it's presented to the board or to the committee. So he can sign through the InfoLeg app in 3 different ways. Directly through a list of documents presented in the app. You choose the document and sign one of these documents using the same security process to do it. Via QR code printed on the document, or via an invitation received by WhatsApp or by email. And in this newer version, we have the facial recognition, the possibility to capture the face of the MP and authenticate it using an AI algorithm to do this process. The process can replace the use of the password. And with this facial recognition feature, it is also possible to capture a photo of the person who executes the voting process, for example, for later audit, a proof of life, something like this. And here to go back to the cell product, to cell InfoLeg, we have the numbers. I have the numbers that prove this excellent acceptance of the product. I'm considering the last 3 years, only completed years. In 2019, we had only in-person voting. InfoLeg wasn't present in this period to do this feature specifically. In 2020, after start of the pandemic, we had only in-app voting. The process was only remote. Through the InfoLeg was the only option to vote, to register for the meeting, for example. In a short period of 2021, this scenario remained only in-app voting, and after March 18th, our hybrid meetings allowed in-app voting and in-person voting. And this was our context today. And we can see the more MPs present in the plenary sessions, in the meetings, and a higher percentage of voters that we had before this process. And this number have continued since the beginning of the hybrid meetings with an app and in-person voting. So 2021, these numbers remained with a higher percentage. And today for us, hybrid meetings are not only a contingency strategy, but also an inclusive strategy, I can say, since they have a rise in the attendance of the members. Including, we had to this normative, regulatory support to establish the deliberation remote system here in the Brazilian House of Representatives. And speaking of improvements and upgrades, I would like to highlight three points three important points. Investments in security. It is always important to reinforce our security mechanisms, since we are talking about the most important process of the parliament, vote. So this investment need to increase, sorry. And this is very important for us to guarantee this transparency and the trust in the matter. And speaking of features, we need a full integration with the Senate to ensure that MEPs from the other legislative house in Brazil are able to use our product transparently during the sessions, regardless of whether they have another application in the Senate. And the opposite should also be true. Members of our house can use InfoLeg during Senate-controlled sessions, such as the plenary session of National Congress. So it is very important to guarantee this full integration today, thinking in the short future. And another important upgrade is that each new relevant functionality of the legislative process should be integrated to the app. For example, signature of documents of the daily legislative process, like forwarding documents. It's important to have this feature here and offer and provide this availability to the members of the parliament. Another example, notification of events indirectly related to the legislative process, like pending authorization for certain action to be granted, or documents waiting to be signed, important notifications that the MPs can receive through InfoLeg too. So these 3 points I would highlight to the next steps of InfoLeg. And that's it. I think this scenario shows our dependence of the InfoLeg today and the necessity to improve it, because that's a product that come to stay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bruno. It seems that with time, the InfoLeg has really become indispensable. It is now a really important part of your legislative process. From the screen that had your percentages, there was a period of time that it was necessary because no one was coming into the parliament, so everything was done remotely, and you kept having all of your voting and legislative process basically over the app.
Yes.
Is that correct? I have two questions before I open the floor to comments from everybody else. One quick question is, security being the most important thing, have you had any hacks or security breaches?
Directly related to InfoLeg, no, but we had some security problems in another applications, internal applications that provides data to InfoLeg. So it's very sensible for us to guarantee that these issues, these questions, these problems will not affect the InfoLeg, mainly the voting process, for example. So our security model evolved through these years. The first version of InfoLeg with these features had another model of security, a simpler model, I can say. Now we are in the third evolution of our security mechanisms. So for us, it's a very important point to be attentive.
Okay, and the second question was, the only people I mean, it's a question. Only people on the planet are the people who work in, actually, here's my question. InfoLeg is for your MPs. Who else gets to use that app?
The InfoLeg is an app available for iOS and Android. You can download from the Google Play Store or for Apple Store. Therefore, some features are specifically to MPs. So you can access several features, but voting, register for a meeting, subscribe a specific list as a speaker, this signature of a bills. These features are specifically to MPs, but all the other ones that permit the following of the legislative process are available for everyone.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you. I would like to open the floor for comments. Mwaula, are you there? Would you like to comment or ask or anything?
Okay, thank you very much. Indeed, I think from the presentation, I think that's a very good application that has evolved, I think, with time. With the last time, I think we had spoken to Parliament of Brazil when we were trying to learn some of the exercises of what they have done. I have seen that you've actually been able to develop the application, I think, further, especially as regards to the aspects of security in terms of one of the features that is there that I think we've been battling with in terms of auditing for voting, where you were able to capture the image of the person that was actually taking the vote at that particular point. Because with the mobility now, you have the situation where if somebody can log in, do everything else, and leave the gadget with someone else to be able to vote on their behalf instead of doing that. So I've seen that you've actually been able to do that. My question that I also wanted to find out from you is, with all these enhancements and the fact that it's now available to the public, do you also have components for citizen participation and interaction between the members of the Senate and the general citizenry in terms of them being able to find out on certain things using the InfoLeg? Submit.
Thank you, through InfoLeg, no, but we have other products related to this participation with the citizens. One of them is related to a proposition that boards at a public initiative. It's a provision by our constitution included. So we have these tools, different tools in our site or in our suite of products to keep this interaction with the public. We have also a possibility to citizens participation during a meeting for a committee, for example, through like a chat, like an interaction directly with the meeting that is in progress, but not through InfoLeg. InfoLeg is more dedicated to following the process, what's happening during a discussion, during a meeting, with videos, with results of the deliberation process, all the things related to the matter that was discussed in the meetings, and is to the members of parliament using these specific features that are for them, like voting and register for the meeting, for example. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Mwaula, and thank you, Bruno. Stephen, do you have any comments and questions?
Yeah, Bruno, is really impressive, and thank you for sharing, and the visuals were great as well. It seems that you have almost moved all functions over to the app, which is very impressive and quite an effort. I'm curious, I'm sure the pandemic helped push everyone into using the app probably, and all those functions onto the app. But I'm curious because my experience in the U.S. House, there have been many discussions over the years before the pandemic, and then certainly at the beginning of the pandemic about should we do everything online, whether it's an app or a website or whatever, but whether that's just committee hearings or committee votes, or whether it's the full chamber votes and hearings. They've been spirited debates, but there has been certainly opposition. And so that's why we have not been able to move as far as you have. As a technologist, I'm jealous. But you have, so did you run into opposition? Like were certain parties or members or the arguments we often hear are, well, it's just not the way it used to be, and the in-person dialogue is so important. I think it's also a practical problem of leadership wanting more control, where when you have the members in the room, they're more easy to, the phrase twist arms, to get votes you want, when if they're not in the room, they're harder to control, the MPs. And then, of course, you already talked about security. That's always thrown up as a excuse not to do something like this. But if you want to talk about any political opposition you had along the way.
We had a kind of opposition, but the start of pandemic became easier our way, I can say. We had an initial resistance to the use of technology applied to such relevant process, mainly voting. Many MPs didn't rely on the solution. But we had several processes of simulation during the tests, and it had to involve so many people to approach to our real context, with the participation of some MPs that were invited to participate. And we use also a dedicated team to respond to the problems, WhatsApp groups, chat rooms, staffed by IT developers from my team and from the teams related indirectly to the process, and also analysts and customer business analysts, professionals from the client area, to help to respond to these problems. And I can say we had also an IT staff dedicated to acting on any reported issue. For this, I can say that the start of pandemic, became this process more feasible, I can say. And another strategy that we already use it to overcome these barriers was a communication strategy. We used an electronic and objective tutorial distributed to MPs' offices and political parties' representation here in the Brazilian House of Representatives, and prior contacts to communicate to MPs before the launch of the new version of an app. Always we had a launch of a new version. We had these communications with these MPs' offices, and we established also a deadline for updating their smartphones. And we've created a call center specifically for MPs and the leaders of these political representations, available for problems and doubts. Dedication to InfoLeg, dedicated to InfoLeg, dedicated to this process, mainly voting process. So I think the set of these actions became easier our work to overcome this barrier.
Thank you. Oh, Robin, you're muted. Sorry.
Yes, okay, now you can hear me. Okay, Mwaula, we're on to you. And it's interesting because Stephen actually asked Bruno a similar question to what I'm pretty much going to be asking you, which is if you can please describe to us the e-chamber application that is used by your parliament. And we're also very interested in knowing when you rolled it out. How was it accepted? How was it maybe not accepted? How was it taken by the members who needed to use it, or if you were asking them to use it? Please share all that that information. And again, if you guys had this similar to actually not so similar, it sounds like InfoLeg was actually developed before the pandemic, but all of a sudden during the pandemic it became again, I'll use the word indispensable. So if the same with you, but then after the pandemic is over, it is still widely used and seems to be also still indispensable. So I'm wondering, again, your experience with e-chamber by you.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. And obviously, before I get to the point of talking about the e-chamber, let me give a bit of brief context to it so that we could maybe be able to appreciate its development and adoption in terms of the whole process. Obviously, one of the things is Zambia is a developing country, and so we were just in the beginning phase of the digital transformation process. And so we had a bit more limited infrastructure in that MPs didn't have things like tablets. There was a high cost of the internet that we had to deal with. And there was a limited resource envelope that you would have to fight for in order for you to be able to get anything else done. And so we had an ICT master plan, which was running from 2010 to 2015. And its implementation really was about, after evaluation, at the end of it was like 26% implementation. And the major component of why it was not successfully done was because of the inadequacy of funds. And so we moved on. And the other thing was that how it was developed, it didn't have the involvement of members of parliament and members of staff within the development of that particular program. So we went on and developed the next one, which was obviously in 2019, we came up now to develop another ICT strategic plan, which was running from 2020 to 2024. Amongst part of what we thought of doing in that particular one is one strategic objective was to basically develop and implement user-friendly ICT tools and e-services to enhance the issue of knowledge management. And so in one of the items that we had in the implementation plan, because we developed two, a strategic plan and an implementation plan for the same period, where we actually now itemized some of the activities that we wanted to do. So there was an item that was falling under this strategic objective, which was basically to develop and operationalize a plenary management system. And lo and behold, what happened was that we then had in March, on the 18th of March, we now had to adjourn Parliament abruptly due to the pandemic. So we had the Parliament actually adjourned abruptly due to the pandemic, because we had actually lost about 2 members of Parliament due to the pandemic. So it had to be adjourned abruptly. But because it was constitutional that the Parliament should sit, so from March to June, the 18th of March to June, the 9th of June, we needed to sit by the 9th of June to meet the constitutional mandate of us being able to sit in a certain number of times. So between March and June, a solution needed to be developed in order for us to find how we could actually be able to sit and be able to meet up with the issue of the pandemic. So what was a major challenge was that we had all these COVID guidelines of how we could be able to sit. And so it was given the social distancing, you needed so many meters in between people. And our chamber was very small, so we couldn't find a way of sitting them in one place, and we couldn't find another venue which had big enough rooms in order for them to be able to sit. And with the traditions of Parliament, they don't want to leave the main Parliament and everything else. They say, no, the Messi has to sit there because it's a symbol of authority. You have all these other things. And so with that in mind, it was easier to then break the members into various rooms, to say we could be able to pick up different rooms and develop a technology to be able to interconnect each of the rooms in terms of the video and the audio. That was the easier part of it all, because all you needed to do is get them some in the main chamber, then sit some in the various other rooms within Parliament grounds, and then you could be able to maintain the social distancing, and then you could have video and audio connected through. Once that was basically done, it now created a new problem, because now people were sitting in different rooms. The presiding officers now were faced with a problem of managing the whole setup of different rooms, and how are they going to know who's going to speak, who wants to do certain things, and hence the development now of e-chamber, which was basically the plenary management system. So the e-chamber was basically developed in order for the presiding officers, the speaker and the clerks at the table and everyone else, to be able to manage the procession of the sitting. And so in trying to get that one running, we basically had to add in features that were going to look at how to basically look at real-time queue management, in terms of members wanted to be able to indicate at a particular point in time within real time. So they indicate to speak, and the speaker is able to see, and it queues them according to the times that they've actually been able to indicate. And also the other aspect that were there is that they also needed issues of points of orders. If I want to raise on a matter that is on the floor and I want to indicate, how were we going to do it? Initially, when we had it, we thought a virtual platform would be something that you would leave them to unmute themselves and speak. But we felt we actually had huge problems, because people would continuously be unmuting themselves, and there was chaos within the house, and you couldn't really manage it. So we had to remove the component of them unmuting themselves from their place. And bear in mind that we're dealing with people that have different exposures to technology. And so even the use of the virtual platform and the virtual meetings was basically a challenge to each one of them. And so that was the genesis, and how everything else now started coming through. So we needed to deal with attendance within the application. So it was able to deal with attendance. It was able to deal with the speakers list in terms of who really wants to be able to speak. And if there was a vote that actually came through, and then there was a disagreement, we had a division list that needed to actually be available, so that members could indicate if they disagree with the speaker's ruling on which side has actually won by acclamation. So then they would indicate. If there are more than 12 people, then an electronic vote could then be dealt with. And so because they were also in different locations, each chamber also had to deal with the aspect of the electronic vote itself. So we had a feature also in there to do the electronic voting within the application. And not only did we have that, we also ensured that because people would be in different locations, we felt document management in terms of document sharing would be a component. So we added a document sharing for various documents that they would use on the floor of the House. The order of proceedings that would be there, the constitution, the standing orders, and various documents that they need in order for them to be able to make the various decisions on the floor of the House. So now that became now a component of what we were now using in terms of the e-chamber. Now, as we were coming up with that particular process, before we developed it, there was now the issue of bringing together, there was a task team that was set up with the speaker involved, the clerks. So the people that were, it was a task team with the health professions and everyone else, and we would sit and try to brainstorm on how we were going to sit. So after everyone else now brought in the ideas, IT was now having to come up with that. And we said we needed to buy this equipment and we needed to develop this particular application in-house. And the good thing was that now the problem we used to have, which was the financial problem, due to the nature of the problem, there were funds that were actually availed at that particular time in order to upgrade our infrastructure, to upgrade our internet capacity, to buy the Zoom, we were using the virtual platform we're using was Zoom, and so we decided to host it on-prem. We had an on-prem system so that in case there was a cut for the internet and things like that, we would still maintain the sessions running. And so we tried to have part of that, and so we went into that particular process. Now that wasn't the only thing, because the sitting was now different. It meant that the rules of the House that were governing how the House basically sits also needed to change in order to accommodate the virtual platform that we were now going in, how we were sitting, the changes. So we had now to review the standing orders in order to allow people to be able to sit from any particular location, and it was called that was called the presence of Parliament. At the height of the pandemic, now we could not sit even in the other committee rooms. Now people had to just go at home and connect from anywhere where they would be. And then only the presiding officers would come in the chamber and preside from there. So basically that's how the movement actually went up. Now with the rush in how everything else was done, there was need for a lot of user training. So part of what we were trying to do is that user training was not only done on the MPs themselves, but we had to first of all train the main leadership within the parliaments to be our digital champions, because we needed to train them, teach them, and make sure that they were more comfortable with the scenarios that they would be able to get and things like that, so that they would be able to deal with some of the issues on the floor of the House. So they were like the ones that would actually engage with the members of Parliament, because us as staff, you find that there is no direct interaction with the members of staff. So the more we discovered, the more we got them to be confident about the systems, the better it was for the members of Parliament. So we not only dealt with the presiding officers, we also dealt with the leaders of opposition, the various leaders within the House, because the more they got to also understand the systems and how it was working, and they got confidence in it, it was easy to now sell it over to everyone else. So that's how the development of this application, of the e-chamber application, basically was done. And it's evolved and it's moved through in that now the presiding officers have been able to indicate certain things to say, okay, we now need certain features, like I want to know which political party this member that is indicating is coming from. I also want to know the gender that they're basically coming from. So what has happened is that it's given the presiding officers more information on the fly when somebody indicates, to be able to balance the debate based on gender, balance the debate based on issues to do with the political affiliation and things like that. And so with the coming in of, in 2021, we actually had elections, and 3/4 of the people that came back were new MPs. And because people were wearing masks, you find that the presiding officers don't know the people in terms of, can't easily recognize them. And so there was a time when they came back in the chamber, and we removed, we tried to say, you can use the systems in the chamber and you can also use e-chamber. The presiding officers were finding it difficult, because now they had to identify people by looking at them to indicate who's this one who wants to speak. And so it became a bit difficult. And so they said, no, take us back to the e-chamber, because it has all the information for them to make the decision. And so we've now, despite people getting back into the chamber, we still have members going there with their tablets, and they still indicate. The equipment that we have in the chamber now is only used as a PA system. So it's just a public address system just for audio and things like that. But in terms of managing the plenary, we are still using the e-chamber system as at now. So that's been the roadmap. I hope I've been able to indicate maybe how the roadmap has been from the point we started, and how we've actually been able to develop this application up to this particular point. I was trying to lean much more on the experiences and the challenges we had in trying to implement it. One of the other challenges that was there in people not wanting the application was the fact that the success of the application meant that some members would have to sit in some other smaller designated rooms, and they felt less of MPs if they were not sitting in the main chamber. So they did not want the application to move, they say no, because now how are you going to be choosing who's going to sit in the smaller rooms? Are you making us less of MPs? And so every time the ones in the smaller rooms would have a problem. So if you find that this member is giving you a lot of problems with the system he's using, if you request that, can we have this member go into the main chamber and still continue using the same system, they would say it's working better when they're in the chamber, in the main chamber. So you find that the problem wasn't really the application itself, but it's just that it was taking them somewhere else. So that's my sharing, I think, on the e-chamber platform for the Parliament of Zambia. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it's pretty funny because basically what you're saying, the technology is not the problem, the people are the problem. But you know, but with enough technology we can fix the people, or is it the other way around? I don't know. Anyhow, well, thank you. Thank you for that. And Stephen, do you have any questions or comments?
Well, you're still using the system even though you're mostly in the chamber? Are members, MPs, still allowed to participate remotely from their home or whatever?
Yes, so what has basically happened is that we've gone back in the chamber, and what has now happened is that because they got used to being able to participate from anywhere else, and so now we've had a situation where if they're out of town, out of country, or in various locations, they're actually seeking permission from the Speaker of the House to say, I'll be attending to these other duties, and I would be out of the country, and I want to be given the login credentials to this particular meeting so that I can participate from that particular one. So we now have a new case scenario where it is no longer the majority being outside, but it's actually a few of them that have exceptionally gotten the permission who are actually going out, because no one wants to miss the proceedings. So every time someone is going out, all they do is they go and get the permission. They are given a letter. Then once they're given a letter, you can actually be able to avail them the credentials, and they follow through with the proceedings.
And can I also ask, is the app only for your MPs, or is it also, is there some functions for the public?
Currently, our app is only for the members of Parliament. Remember, in fact, when we actually started, remember we were doing it in a rush. We had a very short space of time in which we needed to have this done. And so we started now restricting. First of all, we restricted even in country, in that when you go to your Apple store, you want to get it, you only get it when you're registered within Zambia. And so that's when you could actually be able to download it. We also had to ensure that now we do device registration, where an MP can only register it on one device. If they basically want to change on the device that they are using, then would have to send them an authentication code to deregister the other one and register the new one. And so we started now adding a bit of those features, and that's pretty much. Even the platform, we are even restricted that it should only be to the platform, because we only bought Apple the iPad, so we said it should only be installed on the Apple tablet. So we didn't compile it for the Androids and things like that, because it's most common than the iPads, just to try and basically restrict it for the members. But maybe in future, as we are trying to find another app for the public engagement. And the reason why we were trying to keep it closed is we don't want, when it got too much, I think then we could be able to have issues of people hacking it easier than when we lock it up and make it more standalone and restrict the number of people that you basically require. Because if you know all of them are in one place, you could even block it off from any external access and things like that. Yeah.
Interesting. Thank you. Cool.
Thank you. One quick question. As a result, now after pre-pandemic and then during pandemic, and now that we're after the pandemic mostly, would you say that the fact, you're saying that everybody seems to want to still be in the chamber. I mean, most people still want to be in the chamber, but when they leave the chamber, they still want to be part of the process. So the attendance of the MPs in the chamber has, I mean, I'm throwing out this guess, has improved drastically because of the app? Or first of all, was your attendance good beforehand and it has gotten better? Or, you know, was it not good and now it's good? Or what happened there?
Well, I think there's obviously a disclaimer that's there, that with MPs sitting, there's an allowance for them to basically come and sit and participate. We saw that initially, when it was physical, they could only be in one place, so they had to choose whether to go and attend to another item or basically come to join within Parliament. But with the COVID pandemic, we actually had 100% in most cases attendance for committee meetings, for most of the other ones, except that it did not actually indicate the participation levels. People would log in and would stay there, and it would register them as obviously being present. But in terms of participation, the participation levels wasn't as good as when they would be physically present, because people would log in and they're doing something else. I would be in the office here, log in, keep it on, but I'm basically doing something else. And so the participation level was basically what became much more of a challenge. And now, because you could easily get paid with the fact that you've logged in, so there is no way I'd see these two going away, because everybody else wants to make sure that even when they're away, you should be able to still sign in and either contribute, get your allowances for sitting and participating in that particular session. And so, so meaning that we actually had a rise in the attendance when the application actually came through, because mostly it was 100%. I know the security people used to even tell us, now we are having 100% attendance, because every time we get the list to check on who came through, everyone else basically practically logged in, as long as they had internet connectivity where they were.
That's very interesting. So again, it's interesting, a rise in attendance, but possibly a drop in participation. Okay. Bruno, do you have any comments or questions?
Yes. First of all, about your affirmation of Robbie, I totally agree. The technology is not the problem. It can be the solution, but it's not the problem. Talking about Zoom, we use a similar mechanism in Zoom to manage different rooms, different virtual rooms with different rights between the participants of each room. We had a professional from the general secretariat, the manager, as the manager of the meetings, a representative of the client as the manager of the meetings. And this right extended to the session chair too. And in fact, this was a process that demanded and some adaptation and evolution. It wasn't so easy for us to manage these different virtual rooms. And about a question, did you in Zambia, did you develop a specific functionality for vote in each chamber, or did you think of something already available in the video conference tool? Have you already think about this, to use something in the video conference tool that could help this process?
Okay. For the voting, first of all, we also use we're using Zoom as well, and the voting that is within Zoom unfortunately doesn't achieve the purpose for which, because I think there's a poll that is in Zoom that doesn't achieve the purpose for what we would want within the chamber. So what we basically did was we developed a module within the e-chamber, which is basically for voting. Now, one of the things that we did is that because of the time that we had that was very short, we actually created an interface that was very similar to the interface that they were using on the equipment they were using in the chamber. So in the same process flow of how they were doing everything else, log in, press the present key. Then once you press the present key, the various options appear, the 3 options appear, yes, no, and abstain. Click on your option, and then it selects your option, and it's showing you in terms of the bars that are increasing as others are voting. So you can see how many people are voting. So when you add there, you see, okay, it was 4 on yes before I voted, it became 5. So the screen is seen. So you have that screen that is shared with everyone else. Everyone is seeing everything in real time. And so we created an interface that was very similar for every one of for the members, that was similar to what we had in the chamber. So for them, they just thought we had uplifted the system that was in the chamber and put it on a tablet, and so they could move with it. So they didn't see, they didn't feel very alien to the process of voting. When the vote started, they would say, this is exactly what we do in the chamber. We just press here, we press here. And so it was easier to easily accept it from that particular perspective. Yeah.
Thank you.
Robin, you're muted again, sorry.
Yes, muted.
All right. I keep doing that for everybody's convenience, so that, you know, if there's any noise in my house, nobody has to hear it, but then I forget. Okay. Right, Stephen, so on to you. I've heard you speak about Don't Watch in the past, and of course, you know, what Don't Watch does is very interesting. It's also very interesting what you explained in your introduction, that you are actually not you're not neutral, so to speak, but in the end of the day, your app actually does come across as quite neutral and useful. And if you would like to expand on that, you know, explain to us what Don't Watch is, and how something that comes from one side of the floor, you know, maybe be useful for everybody, and, you know, let us hear it.
Sure, thank you, Robin. So yeah, I think our app Don't Watch is quite simple compared to the 2 apps that you've heard so far. And so back to Robin's first question, if I was making a sales pitch to all of the Parliament that are listening, staffers on, you know, should you consider building an app? My advice would be, well, if you look at ours and try to do something similar, we kept it very simple, and so that's an option. You know, I think, as I said before, I'm jealous of these other systems that do everything, but we just do a few very simple things, but we do it. It's some of the most important information that our members want, and we do it very well and cleanly. And also the point I like that you made, Robin, earlier on, you know, the difference between a mobile-friendly website versus an app, and why do you actually need an app? And certainly you have more control over security and other things if you're doing things like voting and everything. But for us, it was very simple, but I think important, and it's just notifications is, I think, how our app got so popular. So our app, you know, another thing we talked a lot about today is whether it's made for the members of Congress or for the public. Now, I think interestingly, ours was entirely made for our members of Congress and staff, but we made it completely available to the public. And so I think we were able to, a lot of the data sets that are in our app never were public before, and now they are. So I think it's been somewhat of a transparency win. And I think the public likes it a lot, but I like to say only the public that cares about the vote by vote of the House, which is not many people. You know, maybe 20,000 people really care about the vote by vote. But, you know, that's a whole lot of the lobbyists and the press and academics. You know, there's lots of important people that really care about the voting and industries. So what we decided to do was we, as the Majority Leader's Office, back in 2015, when we first launched this app, the most important information that we were always giving to the public is our main role in Majority Leader's Office. I know it's different in different parliaments, but is setting the schedule, scheduling the votes. which of course are incredibly important for every member and every staffer. So, you know, everyone's calendars is very important on when they have to be in Washington, D.C. to make a vote. So we were the ones setting that schedule. And so we just decided to publish it very cleanly. And so, you know, we have, you know, month level schedules that we release, week level schedules, day level schedules where we release every night, the best estimate of the next day. But then even minute by minute, you know, we're expected to vote in 10 minutes. Every member needs to come vote in 10 minutes on this. This is what we're voting on. And we even have party information on there. You know, the Democrats are urged to vote yes or no, we always say. And so that was the most critical initial data that we used to be just in an email system that only went to our members and staff. It wasn't available publicly. Well, we just put it in a clean app and we set notifications. And so that's why I think so many of our members and members on both parties actually started doing it right away, is because they could get that information through email, but everyone's email is a mess and nobody has notifications on their email. So, but they wanted their phone to buzz and a big notification when we're voting in 10 minutes. And so that's what we focused on, and that was our 1.0. But, you know, since 2015, we have over 100,000 installs. We have about 10,000 real power users that use it really every day, which is mostly members and staff. And so it's been popular. And because it's popular, we've now made 4 versions, and we are always getting requests for new features, and we are always adding new features. But it's mostly just a way to real time watch the House of Representatives floor. We have video features. We have all the live votes when votes are happening, party breakdowns. And then it's just those regular scheduling alerts, whether the minute by minute ones or the weekly schedules and everything else. So that's the heart of ours. Now we've added other sweeteners, like another data set that wasn't really released was job announcements for staffers in the House of Representatives. For whatever reason, that was never really publicly posted it was never done well. And so we just added it because a bunch of staffer people asked for it. And that's been a very popular. Everyone loves seeing job announcements and being able to apply to try and work for a member of Congress. So that's our app. It was certainly helpful during the pandemic, but it in no way is used in the actual running of the House of Representatives. It's just sharing breaking news of all the scheduling information in a modern, clean way. And the only reason it's not a mobile app is notifications, to get back to your original question, Robin, which I think is important and users really like. Just real quickly on our COVID response, we did change our rules in our chamber shortly after the COVID pandemic, as did everyone. There was a big push to implement something fully remote, like remote voting. My boss was publicly a proponent of that and tried to get that done, but unfortunately we weren't able to get it done. We did do a low-tech version where voting in the full chamber was allowed for the first time through proxy. So members were allowed to give their vote to another member, up to 5. So one member could stand up and vote for themselves and 5 others. As long as there was a written record of that member directing them how to vote. And of course, you know, votes are public, so it's not that big of a deal. But on our committee level, we did for the first time allow committees to go fully virtual. So it was mostly in Zoom, it was also in Cisco WebEx, but they had, you know, hundreds of committee hearings and votes on the committee level. Although interestingly, our rules did not allow for electronic voting within streaming. Something I opposed and my member opposed as well. So they'd have to do just audio roll calls whenever there was a vote through Zoom or WebEx. Probably would have been a lot simpler with just, you know, even a thumbs up or many other, or chat or whatever. But finally, the House is really looking into ways to prepare for the next pandemic, including lots of heavy testing of mobile voting apps. We did have limited use cases like internal party elections. We used some mobile app voting during the pandemic. Some different caucuses used it for some kind of votes. But so that's my update. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. A quick question / comment is that by the way, by us also in the Knesset, as opposed, it's funny because we also had a situation where we never went to even voting by proxy. The Knesset members through the pandemic still had to show up to the building. So there was never similar to the situation that Mwaula described, there was all of a sudden this need to come up with solutions within not even months, and sometimes not even weeks, but we're talking about days, coming up with a solution of how to spread the members of parliament around the building, and but have them as if they're in the chamber together virtually. That was, of course, and in the end of the day, again, there was no need to come up with some kind of an app for everybody to vote, because everyone still had to show up. And of course, you had the rooms where the people who actually had COVID were in those rooms, and you had the people who were in isolation in those rooms, and you had the people who were in neither in those rooms. But they came up with the solution. But there was never a need. So it's just very interesting because, you know, I'm busy from the Knesset talking about, you know, mobile-friendly website. There's been no need even up until now for some kind of an app that's going to run the processes of the legislative process. Let's put it like that. And so it's actually very fascinating to hear from Bruno and from Mwaula about applications that actually, you know, it's almost like you don't even need the building anymore, almost. Okay, in theory, you need your, you need the people, you need the iPad. In your case, Mwaula, you need the iPad, and there you go. You have your legislature. It doesn't sound like you don't even need more than that. So actually, this is for me. This has actually been very, very interesting coming, hearing all of this from you guys. Hey, I'm gonna go home over to my, actually home is my office actually, because I might be there actually more in my waking hours than I am at home. But that's another story. And tell them all about it and say, you know what, one day if someone really decides to have an app, we know where to go find, to find some solutions. We have apps to take a look at, to download and to see. So again, thank you very much for that. If anybody would, I'd be very happy for each of you to take, I'm looking and I see we have 7 minutes left. Each of you take some time and let's wrap it up. Some closing comments. Bruno, we'll start with you.
Okay. InfoLeg here, InfoLeg also has the notification of some events related to the plenary sessions and the committee meetings, like beginning of the session, beginning of the voting process, end of a voting process, notifications like that. You can choose for which meetings do you want to receive these notifications, and the notifications are similar notifications by WhatsApp, for example. But like I've said before, we don't have in InfoLeg the direct interaction between the public and the MEPs, like exchange of messages or something like this. Do you intend to include this interaction in your app? Is it a plan? And if it is, how the MPs react with this? They are for this kind of initiative.
Is that a question for me? I'm happy to speak to that. Yeah. So the our app does not have any two-way communication. It's all just publishing information. We do not allow, even though the public can download it and they get the full version, the same one that the members of Congress all use, the public cannot send any information back. But I think that certainly is the next evolution in congressional apps, legislative apps. I think we've had a lot of attempts in that area. We've had a lot of microsites around specific bills where we allow the public to comment publicly and to upvote comments and downvote comments. And I find that area very interesting. I think it's really important to get the phrase signal and not noise. It's very easy to, when you open up a public comment, to get tons of noise that's not helpful. But I think if you sort of find ways to force it to be structured, so in the microsites that we've done, we force all the comments to be substantively about a particular bill. And so it's very easy when you get a whole bunch of people, just ranting about their normal politics, to just say, no, that's not relevant to this discussion, that we're having a discussion only about this one bill. So it's nice to have sort of, if you clearly say your guidelines, and that, but then that turns into a content moderation problem, where of course the social media companies are struggling with that. And, Facebook has tens of thousands of people who, or hundreds of thousands of people globally, who all they do is do content moderation. So if we were to make an app like that, as we've done with microsites, that becomes a real problem. And we try to automate as best we can. You can use different captchas to make sure it's real people and not spamming you. And you can let users do it, like crowdsourcing. Like, for example, on our microsite, where we said that the discussion has to be about a bill, we had a little button that said off topic, and people loved it. And they would read the comments and they'd say, no, this is off topic, that's off topic. And so we would use the people's inputs to help keep it clean and constructive and substantive. But yeah, that's an area that I like to explore more of, and I'm always thinking about, and would love to hear more from global examples of successes in that area.
Okay. Thank you, Stephen, and thank you, Bruno, for ignoring my my mistake, which was that this round is supposed to be comments and questions to Stephen. So thank you. Mwaula, do you have questions or comments for Stephen?
Yeah, I think maybe just a comment. Obviously, it's I like the component of where you're getting information that is structured in a certain way, and availing it to people in a manner that they would actually be able to utilize. We've been struggling with the aspect of our websites have a lot of content, a lot of information that is generated, especially from the perspective of the legislature, that we want to give out, but in the format in which they are available for people to be able to get them. Because one of the things that we have in our strategic plan is also to be able to develop what we would say youth-friendly websites and things like that. But I'm looking at the components of your application to really be able to get certain sets of information and giving it out to the people in a more structured and organized manner that is a little bit different for any particular component. And for me, I think that looks like a game changer for how information is going to be perceived, because then people will be receiving information that they would actually be able to process and utilize. And I think it will then achieve the purpose of us generating that set of information. And I just wanted to note, is your system also, does it require registration from the general public for them to be able to use it or to see to see what is going through?
Yeah, we actually have no user authentication registration whatsoever, because the same version is available to everyone. So we kind of like that. We don't collect personal information on anyone. If we got hacked, it's just the information that's already available. So it's a little safer from a security reason. It's safer. It's better for the user experience, because of course, whenever you have a login, that's inevitably difficult for some members, and the administration of passwords and or keys and two-factor and all of that is just a whole lot of work that luckily we don't have to deal with. But we've certainly explored it, and members ask for it because they want special access. But right now we're just completely open.
Okay, well, thank you. One quick question actually for you, Stephen, which actually I even forgot that I had written down, is when you mentioned that the Congress is looking at possible future solutions for a possible future pandemic or any other situation that might cause everybody to have to be remotely tied into the Congress. that would be, I assume that would be the internal workings of the Congress doing that, and not you. However, do you think that the people of the, the IT people of the Congress, or whoever, would be developing that, would they come to you for advice, for your experiences? In other words, would you be somehow involved in that anyway, even if it's not, even if it's, more
yeah, just because I've been here for so long, I do have very good relationship with those people, and so yes, I am sort of involved in those conversations, and that's how I know that they are heavily testing different options. And many of them are great institutional workers. Wanted to move more quickly before, but they really felt that they didn't have enough political directive or authority to do something like Brazil's done, so it's just finally I think they feel that they at least have the authority to test it and have everything. It's kind of crazy at the end of the pandemic to not at least have a strong option if the policymakers ever make the decision to take operations online again. It's just sort of silly to not have that fully planned out at this point in time, because it's what if the next pandemic is twice as deadly? Well, then we probably all will be not in the same room, or even sub rooms. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. Okay, so if everybody would like to run around the the group and say a closing sentence, I'd be very happy to hear it. Mwaula, we'll start with you.
Okay, thank you very much, and I think this has been very productive. We learned quite a lot from the other two setups, and also from your experiences also on your side, and hoping that we'll be able to add that. I hope this perception that has been enhanced, the perception for ICTs within our leadership, within parliaments, would actually continue, because it seems the pandemic has actually increased the perception and confidence of ICTs in our leaders, and we are hoping that we can hold on to it and move with it quickly, so that we can also move through this digital transformation agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephen?
Yeah, just thanks again for having me, and I likely similar. I learned a whole lot from fellow panelists, and really enjoyed this as always, and love any opportunity to collaborate internationally, since I often feel like in our country, that we even have the state legislatures, so there are a lot of other people in the similar business as us, but there's not much collaboration going on. So I love this opportunity, and Robin, thank you for hosting, and thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Bruno.
I'd like to thank the opportunity to exchange these ideas with you. And I think the current context we are demands issues that we all want in all the activities and services we consume today, and mobility and agility. I think mobility to allow you to perform any process related action from anywhere, and with security for sure. And the legislative process is no different. So I think the mobile applications are here to stay, and our role as technical responsible for these products, I think it's to focus on being simple and prioritizing the actions that matter most to our core audience. I think that's the way. Thank you.
Okay, so I will say thank you again to each of you for participating. I learned a ton, and next time, maybe we'll see each other again and have more things to say and share. And thank you, Louis, for this opportunity. And I hope all the rest of you have a great rest of your week.